Have you ever felt like having bad credit is a life sentence? Well, let me tell you, it is not the end. And in today's video, I am sharing with you my real, raw, and unfiltered journey with credit, from having bad credit to thriving, honey. I'm gonna share with you guys everything that I've done, everything that I've been through. And I'm also going to be sharing what you can do if you have a child, how you can set them up for success with their credit. So that is something that you are here for, honey. Let's get into it. So disclaimer, before we get started, my name is Jasmine, aka Budget Treasures, and here on my channel I talk about all things finance with the emphasis on budgeting, saving money, and paying off debt. I am not a credit expert. I repeat, I am not a credit expert. I know very little about credit, but I want to share with you guys what I have done. I'm merely just sharing my story and the things I've been through, what I've done. I will also share with you the people that I have taken great advice from, and I have implemented their advice, which I've shared with you guys before, but specifically for this video, I'll make sure that I share them again because I've done exactly what they've told me to do or what they have suggested, and it has turned my credit around. So first, let's talk about my journey with credit and how it began. I unfortunately have been having bad credit, or I had bad credit since I was 18 years old. I got my first credit card. I got I think a Visa card, and then I got a couple of retail cards. I ran those cards up and I only made a couple of payments. And then from there, I just didn't make any of the payments again. Of course, that tanked my credit score horribly. And right out the gate at 18, I had about a 580, 570 credit score due to late payments. Those credit cards eventually went to collections, and I didn't pay the collections or anything. And then from then on, I was not able to approve for anything, whether it was a car, whether it was an apartment, or another credit card or anything. I had to have a co-signer or I was just denied completely. It was very difficult to live at 18. I didn't know anything. I just thought, you have this credit card. I knew that I was supposed to pay it, but I didn't know how much it would affect me negatively in life because I didn't pay the credit card. So right out the gate, I started at 18 with horrible credit. So before we get into the next step, if you like the hat that I am wearing, I will leave it linked down below, but I did get this from a creator. Her name is Shar Love, and she came to my church and she had these really cool hats and she was selling them. So if you are interested in this hat, I will leave it linked down below. So now let's talk about my struggles with bad credit. It was really difficult for me to rent anything, whether it was an apartment or a car. I had high stress and anxiety, especially knowing just that I wasn't able to qualify for pretty much anything. I wasn't able to even sometimes get bank accounts because my bad credit even spilled over to me having negative balances in my checking account and not paying that. And so then I'm on check systems. So not only can I not get credit or apply for anything, I can't even get a checking account because now I'm on check systems. So every time I try to go open up a checking account, they come back and say, I'm so sorry, call this number. But yes, that was horrible. And that was really bad. It even affected me really quick one time where I was trying to get a job. And in order for me to get this job, I had to have a bank account. I just had my daughter. She was 6 months old. I went around to so many banks and everybody told me no. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get this job. I went to one bank. This bank is called One United Bank. It's a Black-owned bank here in Los Angeles, California. And they were the only ones who trusted me and opened me up a bank account. I was so tired of going to every bank that I just sat there and I said, look, I know I'm on check systems. I'm not even going to sell you a story. I'm trying to get a job. And the only way I can get this job is if I get a checking account. Please, 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 please give me this checking account. And they opened it for me. So shout out to One United Bank. That's one thing, you know, when you have some of these smaller banks in the community, they will do what they can to help. So yeah, I've had just about every bad experience, with the exception of bankruptcy or my car being repossessed. But I've had to purchase cars and have extremely high interest rates. There were some times where I didn't even qualify for the car. I had to have a co-signer. Anytime I wanted to go and live somewhere, I had to have a co-signer, or I had to have a lot of money to put down, like 1 to 2 times the rent, in order for them to rent to me. It was just really stressful. Anytime I would need credit to do anything, I couldn't rent a hotel room because you have to have a credit card, and it was just really horrible, to say the least. And this was like in my 20s. So my experience with bad credit is just something that I think about, and it's something that I never want to go to again. So now let's talk about my journey to repairing my credit. I decided that I wanted to repair my credit once it was time for me to purchase my home. And I knew that I needed a good credit score in order to do so. That was one reason. The other reason was me just wanting to get my finances together, and I wanted to be a good example for my daughter. And once I was encouraged by those two things, that's when I went on the journey to repair my credit. So let's talk about how I did it. So the first thing that I did was I pulled my credit report. You can pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com. Once I did that, I was able to see everything that was on my credit report. Some things have fallen off because it had already been 7 years, and some things hadn't fallen off. So all of the everything that I had on my credit, those things that were in collections, I called the collections company and I worked out a deal with them. Some of them allowed me to pay and delete, which means that you pay whatever it is that you have to pay. For me, I had to pay the full balance, and then they would delete it from my credit. Others, I worked out a deal with them and it just showed paid on my credit. So that was the first step of me repairing my credit, just making sure that whatever I had on my credit report that I needed to pay, I did that. And I did have one credit card that was still on my credit. It was a credit card that I have gotten. It was from Premier Bank Card. And this is a credit card for people with bad credit. The credit limit was $250. I had an annual fee, and I also had to pay a fee of $7 every single month to even keep it open. So I continued to use that credit card, but I didn't even use it responsibly at that time. I just would use it and pay on it and use it and pay on it and pay it off. But it was a good thing that I had that credit card, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But that was the very first thing that I did to start rebuilding my credit. I also used the snowball method in order to pay down my credit as well. The last time that I paid off all of my credit, which was about a year ago, where I paid off $30,000 of debt, I pretty much used the snowball method. And there was a time before when I had paid off my credit, I had used the snowball method as well. I really like the snowball method because it allows me to celebrate along the way, and it keeps me motivated. And that's pretty much when you're paying the smallest debt first, and then you're working your way up to the highest debt that you're paying off. And so that is pretty much what I did to work on paying off my debt. I will share that I did not dispute any charges or try to get anything removed without paying. So I don't have any experience with that, but I do want to recommend Shonda Martin. She is from the Road to 750. I'll leave her link down below. She has a ton of information. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to credit. Like if you have any bankruptcies, if you have any repossessions, she talks about all of that stuff. She gives you letters that you can write to dispute, and I'll leave her information down below. I rave and rant about her because she is seriously the truth. And so if you have some more complex issues going on with your credit, I will suggest her to you. She's someone that I follow, and everything that I've done that she suggests, it has pretty much helped me positively. So now let's talk about my life with good credit. So when I first started out at 18 years old, I had a credit score of about 580, somewhere around there. It was definitely in the 500s. And now I have a credit score of 705 or 705. But the main thing to pay attention to is that my credit health and my borrowing power has increased tremendously. And let's talk about what I do now to even get to that point. I do have a few credit cards. However, I am not using all of those credit cards, and I'm being very intentional. I have one credit card that I'm using which has cash back options on it, or not options, but I do get cash back for using that credit card. I use my credit card to pay my bills, and then I just pay my credit card with my bill account. By doing this, it continues to increase my credit score, because one of the things that I didn't realize is that in order for you to improve your credit, you have to use your credit. So you can pay everything off and have everything at a zero, but your credit score is not going to continue to grow unless you are actively using the credit and paying it off. At least that was my story. I want to make sure I turn that back on me. For me, my credit health didn't improve until I started to actually use my credit card responsibly. So, like I stated, I have all of my bills on one credit card, and I pay that credit card off with my bill account. I also have another credit card that I get cash back on as well, and I get gas with that credit card, and then I pay that credit card off every 2 weeks. That is how my credit is improving. I make sure that I'm very intentional. I will only use my credit card if I have the money saved already. I do not say I'm going to use my credit card and when I get the money, I'll pay it off. Because 9 times out of 10 for me, I would be creating a risk for myself, because it's a possibility that I don't actually pay it off, and I'm left with now that debt that continues to snowball into more debt and more debt. So unless I have the money, I am not swiping my card. Also, what I do is I pull money out of the account, and I have the cash, and I purchase whatever said item or thing it is that I want to purchase. And then I take that money and I deposit it back into the bank, and I make the payment on my credit card. That may seem like a lot, but it does work well for me in that sense. And I have a plan of me using the credit card. I do not use my credit card without a plan. Why I'm using my credit card, what it is that I want to do with my credit within the next 3 to 6 months, the purpose. I am only using my credit card with a plan in mind. And for me, I want to refinance on my home. So I am looking to increase my credit score so that I can get a better interest rate for my home. So that's the reason why I'm using my credit in the way that I'm using it. But once again, I'm only using my credit card with a plan. So it is important that you note that. So now let's talk about what you can do to help your children, if you have children or young people, to build their credit. So you'll hear all the time, oh, you can add them as an authorized user. You can add them as an authorized user. And that is great. But it's better when you just get them a secured card. And it can be for how much ever. It can be for $100, $200, $500, whatever it is. This is what I did. I got my daughter a secured card. She didn't know anything about this credit card. And I would purchase something on that credit card, pay it off. Purchase, pay it off. Purchase, pay it off. And did that for years. For about a couple of years. I believe me and my mom worked on her credit from when she was about 17, I believe. That's when we started. But if you want, you can start at 18. Alongside that, now she did know about this credit card that was being used and paid. So her credit is building. I also talked to her about credit. I talked to her about money. I talked to her about what are some things to be aware of, especially like when your friends come to you and say, hey girl, can you co-sign for me a car? Or some little boy you date and says, hey, can you co-sign for me to do this or do that? And so I would talk to her about those things and tell her, you better not do that. Okay. So one is having those conversations, like talk to your child about credit and what the what it means to have bad credit and what it means to have good credit. So I had those conversations with her early on, and I had them with her a lot. And behind the scenes, I'm working, my mother and myself, we're working on her credit in the background, and she doesn't know about it. I also have her credit report linked to my email. So anytime she would have tried to open something, which she did, or anything, I would be able to look into her credit report and see what's going on. So there was a time where she did open up something, and I called my mom first. I said, hey, do you know what this is? And she's like, no, I don't know. And I talked to my daughter. She's like, yeah, I did. Okay. So then, of course, she doesn't know. I didn't let it go bad. We paid it for her to make sure that her credit would stay in good standing. But it was a lesson to her that, hey, we've been working on your credit, and had this gone to collections, it would have just wiped out all of the work that we have done. So remember, don't do it. So it was a lesson for her for sure. But those are the things that I did, my mom and myself, to improve her credit health. So yeah, I didn't tell her, we don't, we're like, hey, nope, until I feel as though she fully understands what it means to have good credit. So she's 22 now, but I'm still walking her through once she gets her credit card and she actually has it, and then or the credit card will be given to her. She still doesn't have the credit card because I don't think she's ready yet. But I'll walk her through, okay, do you have the money already before you go use this credit card? So I'm teaching her as she's getting older and growing through life. And so that's personally what I did. Got her a secured credit card, worked on that credit card in the background, and had conversations with her about credit. And I think that pretty much sums up everything. So I've had, people to ask me, like, what did I do? And that's pretty much what I did. Like I said, I don't have any complex issues with my credit, but one of the most things that I needed to do was I had to pay the debt off. That's just simple as that. You have to pay the debt off. I do know some people, they try to get around it. And for me, it was just no way around it. I had to pay it. So I've never had it where I was able to dispute something and they took it off. Like, that's not my story. Maybe it can be somebody else's, but if you have any questions, please leave them down below and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you. Until next time, I'll see you besties in the next video. Go be great. Peace out.